congratulations if you made the fantasy playoffs this season, or if you're still fighting right now, congratulations to you as well. This season has been crazy, so making the fantasy playoffs has been a feat in itself. So, congratulations to you. Good job, everybody. Here are some fantasy options if you need waiver wire pickups this week. It's kind of slim pickings, so hopefully you're just going with your studs. But if you need somebody to play this week, due to COVID, injuries, whatever the case may be, here are some options. The first one here is going to be Leonard Fournette. Now, this is totally if Ronald Jones misses this week. The Fantasy Doctor, go follow him if you don't on YouTube, gives great insight in terms of injuries. He said that if Ronald Jones has a fractured pinky and he needs to get pins placed in his finger, he will miss this week. So, there hasn't really been that much news about it with Ronald Jones. It just broke today. They didn't really talk about the significance. So, if he does miss Leonard Fournette, now some people might say, well, Leonard Fournette was inactive last week. Leonard Fournette was inactive, McCoy was active, because basically Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones have the same role. I don't know why Leonard Fournette really came to this offense to begin with, why they had him come when they had Ronald Jones. He's going to be between the tackles kind of guy. They're not going to put McCoy in that situation. McCoy is a shell of himself. He's more of their pass catching, third down type of back, where Leonard Fournette I do think is going to kind of be like a Ronald Jones, so between the tackles with some catches, definitely goal line work. So Leonard Fournette if Ronald Jones misses. Next one is going to be Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts balled out this weekend. I got to say, I did not like Jalen Hurts, as probably mostly everybody, but he balled out and he rushed for over 100 yards. Now, I don't expect him to rush for over 100 yards again, but if that's a ceiling, sign me up. Like, if we can get 50 yards of rushing and a touchdown possibly, then yes, he has a huge ceiling going forward, enormous upside going forward. And he gets Dallas championship week. So let's see how he does this week. I would pick him up, put him on your bench. I wouldn't start him yet. Unless you're desperate, then go ahead. But I wouldn't start him yet. Wait to see if you get to the championship. Hopefully you will. And then if he does well next week, then yes, 100% is a very good play for the championship game. The next one here is going to be Lynn Bowden Jr. You might be asking yourself, who is this person? So right now on Miami, you have Parker, Grant, Gesicki, Gaskin, Breida, all possibly out this week. Even Ahmed possibly out. So they are super depleted on the offensive side. Right now, Lynn Bowden Jr., this past week, he had the most routes ran, the most targets, 9, most catches, 7, the most yards, 82, this previous game. So he seems like he may be the target for Tua. Now he does play New England this next week. But one cool thing about him as well is he has eligibility for the running back and wide receiver position in both ESPN and Yahoo. So if you really need help with one of them, this is somebody that you can kind of plug in there for either one. Now I know it's not tight end or quarterback, which would be awesome, but he does have some upside if all those guys miss. Now, if one of them comes back, I don't think so. But if all those guys miss, I don't expect him to be shadowed or anything. I don't think that they would even shadow anybody because there's nobody to shadow. But he is somebody that is on my radar, especially if you're desperate. The next one here is going to be Nelson Agholor. Nelson Agholor is much safer than Bowden. We know what we're going to get with Nelson Agholor. This past week, he had 5 catches, 100 yards, touchdown. A good fantasy week from him. Now, they play on Thursday night against the Chargers. This game right now has a 53 over-under right now. So you're going to have some scoring in this game. I like my chances with Nelson Agholor if you need help at the wide receiver position or a flex play. Next one, Salvon, Ahmed, and I'll put in DeAndre Washington. DeAndre Washington at least saw, I think, 15 touches. I could be wrong, 14 or 15. He saw a decent amount of work. It just was not efficient at all. But Salvon Ahmed possibly available in your leagues. Maybe he comes back this week and is the guy because Gaskin and Breida are possibly not going to play this week due to COVID. So the next one here is going to be Jeff Wilson Jr. Now this is kind of like Jeff Wilson Jr., Alexander Madison, like these kind of guys. But Jeff Wilson Jr. has the most value right now rather than just a handcuff. But the other guys like Alexander Madison, Tony Pollard, we saw it this weekend. You know, we had Gaskin have COVID less than 24 hours to game time. So people had to adjust everything. Don't be the person that, you know, you're doing something and you don't have your phone on you, and the next thing you know, Dalvin Cook's out this week with COVID, right? It could totally happen. So I'm saying if you have a open spot on your bench, add somebody like Jeff Wilson, Alexander Madison, Tony Pollard, like these kind of guys that are going to be in a really good position if the guy in front of them goes down. So kind of trim the fat like I talked about in one of my previous videos. Trim the fat, put these high premium quality running backs on your bench. The next one here is going to be Keke. Now, thankfully, he scored a touchdown this previous week, or it would have been a dud. He does get the Colts. We've already seen him crush the Colts. Maybe he does it again. I don't think so. Temper your expectations a little bit, but he did have a decent game against them, and they are pretty depleted at the wide receiver position right now. So if you need somebody, Keke, I'd probably rather have Nelson Agholor this week, though, personally. The next one, Tim Patrick. You know I love Tim Patrick. Always got to bring him up. Plays Buffalo. I don't know if he sees shadow coverage from Tre'Davious White. I think he probably will, just because he's taller than Jerry Jeudy. So he'll probably see shadow coverage. I have to double check, but if you need some production, especially in like a standard league, he's scoring touchdowns and has scored touchdowns all season long. So when they get close, they look his way. He's catching touchdowns. Need somebody in standard, Tim Patrick. Next one, Russell Gage. Finally came alive this weekend, but now it just depends if Julio is going to come back. Don't know, so I wouldn't claim him. I would possibly just keep your eye out. Julio Jones news, possibly pick him up free agent if you need some help. I wouldn't claim him or anything, but keep your eye on Russell Gage if Julio is out. Next one, Chad Hansen. I have to basically put him in here. I feel like I don't have any interest. Don't play him. Plays the Colts. Terrible matchup. Yes, they are depleted and they need somebody, some volume, but I would just look elsewhere. I don't have much interest in him. Don't pick him up. Don't put in a claim. Unless you're in a really deep league and you need somebody, then sure. But if you're in like a 12-man league, there's better options. So these are some streaming options at the tight end position. The first one's going to be Irv Smith Jr. Now, this depends if Kyle Rudolph is out. If Kyle Rudolph is out, I do like Irv Smith Jr. He plays against Chicago. Chicago's given up the third most fantasy points to the tight end position this year. So I do like Irv Smith Jr. if Kyle Rudolph is out. And let's get into some streaming options at quarterbacks. Personally, Jalen Hurts is over Phillip Rivers for me right now. Phillip Rivers, we know what his ceiling is. It's basically like right around 20 points. Yes, he could probably go over that maybe. But right now against Houston, I just imagine that they run the ball really efficiently against Houston. They don't need Phillip Rivers to go out there and sling the ball over. So you're going to probably get like 17, 18 points right now. So I'd rather go Jalen Hurts just because you have the upside with the rushing. But with Phillip, you know what you're going to get. He's been pretty consistent as of late. So if you'd rather just play it safe, Phillip Rivers. But if you want the ceiling, Hurts. Next one, Mitchell Trubisky. Mitchell Trubisky is kind of like the same with Phillip Rivers, except Phillip Rivers is a little bit more consistent. Now this week he plays Minnesota. It's a tougher matchup than last week against Houston. Houston's just, they're so bad right now. But Mitchell Trubisky, if you need somebody, sure, if the other options aren't there. In my top streaming defenses right now, these are under 50% rostered. Hopefully they're there. Right now, my favorite is the Browns. The Browns play the Giants. The Giants right now have the second fewest points scored this season, right next to the Jets. So they're not going to score points. And if they score points, I will be amazed. Right now, I think the Browns will be able to get to them defensively, cause some sacks. So the Browns are my top streaming option. The second one is going to be the Vikings. The Vikings play the Bears. I know the Bears have been playing pretty well as of late. I'm not buying it. Not against a team that still has an outside chance. I don't know if they've officially been eliminated, but they have maybe like an outside chance. So they're still fighting. I like them against the Bears. And then the last one here is the Washington defense. They're only rostered, well, they're rostered in 52% of leagues. But if they're available in your league, I do like them this week against Seattle. They might be dropped because they're playing Seattle, but I still like the matchup. Seattle has to go cross coast. I've talked about this. When teams have to go from the West Coast to the East Coast playing at 1 o'clock, they do not fare well at all. I know it's Seattle, but I still think Washington's defense gets to Russell Wilson. And right now they're just playing extremely good football, the defenses. So Washington's defense. With that being said, if you do enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you for watching and good luck this week, everybody. See ya.